Hello, friends. I welcome you all to the DECODE IAS YouTube platform, and we are going to continue the Mauryan Empire as a part of your ancient history revision in absolutely flowchart manner, not in detail. And it is only for those who have already studied ancient history and they want to relate and revise it quickly. In the previous video, we have discussed about the sources of Mauryan history, and today we're going to start with the political history of Mauryan Empire. Now, normally in political history of Mauryan Empire, normally UPSC doesn't ask from political aspect, but what it can ask is that some basic information about the entire lineage. Say, for example, let us start the political history of Mauryan Empire from Chandragupta Maurya. Now, while revising, you need to concentrate on few things. Say, for example, few facts about Chandragupta Maurya. Say, Kautilya was his mentor, right? Next, few important aspects of Chandragupta Maurya is that he was the chief architect of the Mauryan Empire. Right? Seleucus Nicator sent Megasthenes to Chandragupta's court, where he wrote the book called Indica. All right. Then he first established at Punjab, and then he moved towards the east until he captured the Magadha Empire from Dhanananda. Who actually Nanda dynasty. This is how he established. All right. Apart from that, he adopted Jainism. So you see, this is how you need to prepare. This is how you need to remember few important facts about the leaders, about the emperors of the Mauryan Empire. All right. Next, we come to the next emperor called Bindusar. In the case of Haryanka dynasty, it was Bimbisar. This is Bindusar. All right. Now, few things about him is important. Number one, he is known as Amitra Ghat. That means the killer of enemies. That means he wasn't a follower of Buddhism because he believed in violence. So he was a follower of Ajivika. Ajivika, who believes in Niyati. All right. Apart from that, he conquered the land between Arabian Sea and Bay of Bengal. Say, for example, this is India. So this part we are talking about. So this was the first sort of a pan-India empire in ancient history. This is important. All right. Apart from this, Tibetan monks. Apart from this, almost entire empire consists of the subcontinent. Either through his sovereignty and few cases suzerainty. All right. As per the Greek sources, he had diplomatic relations with the West, the West or Western kings. All right. Now, if you read like this, trust me, this will be absolutely a best strategy to qualify prelims when it comes to history. Now, let us quickly go to Ashoka. Few important facts. After the death of Bindusara, there was a 4 years war of succession. All right. Therefore, loss of human life and at the same time loss of resources, revenue. Radha Gupta, a minister, he informed Ashok. He wanted Ashoka to be the next king. He informed Ashok, and Ashok killed 99 brothers. He killed 99 brothers of his, and he acquired the throne. All right. He is regarded as one of the greatest kings of all times. His empire during Ashoka, his empire extended from Hindu Kush to Bengal and Kashmir to the Nepal Valley. So you see, almost the entire subcontinent was his empire, was under his control. And he was probably the first king to maintain a direct contact with his people through his inscriptions. All right. So these are very crucial things that you need to know about Ashoka. And we all know that after Kalinga War, he changed completely. He adopted Buddhism, and even he promoted it to the entire subcontinent. Now, when it comes to the last ruler of the Mauryan Empire, it is Brihad Rath. The last ruler of the Mauryan Empire. Few things that we need to understand. Mauryan Empire declined rapidly after Ashoka. Later kings were weak, and the empire was getting fragmented because it was a huge empire inside. It was very difficult to manage and administer. 3. Brihadrat was the last Mauryan king, and he was killed by his own military commander, Pushyamitra Sunga. In around 187 BCE. So these are the few facts that you need to understand. The next is Mauryan administration. Those who haven't seen the last videos, those who haven't seen the last lectures, then they can click the link below and they can see what all we have covered in the Ancient History Revision series. Now, while revising the Mauryan administration, you need to make a flow chart like this. So, for example, the first point would be they believed in innovative administrative changes. Number 2, it was a vast empire. As we have seen in the last class, and therefore they had a centralized administration, wherein the king was at the fountainhead with all the powers. Next, the empire was probably divided into provinces with a viceroy in each province. You see, such a modern way to administer the entire empire. You see. Now, next important point, the Kautilya's Arthashastra mentioned about the concept of administration, the theory called the Saptanga theory, the Saptanga Rajya, which was being followed. Now, what is Saptanga theory? We will deal in the later part of this video. Apart from this, the king believed in paternal despotism rather than a divine rule. This is very logical, but they believed in, it's very logical because the king believed in paternal despotism. You might not like the decision of the king because it is harsh, but trust the king and his decision because it's for our benefit. This is the paternal despotism concept, and it has nothing to do with some sort of a divinity. You can always question the rule, but it's absolutely logical. Now let us deal with the Saptanga theory. What are the 7 parts? According to Kautilya, this is basically like this, that the state is comprised of 7 interrelated and interlocked angas, or parts, rather, elements. What are these elements that we need to understand? Now let us take it from here. First, Swamin, or the king. Second, Amatyas, that is the higher officials and ministers. Third, Janpat, that is the provinces and the population. Fourth, Durg, or forts. Next, fifth, Kosh, or what we know as treasury. Sixth, this is Dandbala, that is force, punishment, and justice. And the last but not the least, Mitra, ally, is related to the foreign relations. Now this is how all these are interrelated and interlocked as per the Saptanga theory of Kautilya. I believe this is quite clear now. What was the Mauryan society like? What was the Mauryan society like? Was it a closed society? Let's see a few things. Number 1, increase in the number of untouchables. Second, there was some improvement in the social status of Vaishyas, that's the trading community, and at the same time Shudras. Third, the Varna system continued to exist, and Brahmins along with the Kshatriyas continued to dominate the social hierarchy. Fourth, slavery existed. Fifth, no mention of Sati or Varna in Ashokan edicts. Sixth, there were instances of release from enslavement when a dasi bore a child rather a son, for her master. And the son would be considered as the legitimate child of the father. That means we can get to a seventh point, that the condition of women and children wasn't very good. So these are the few points that you need to understand, you need to remember when it comes to the Mauryan society. All right, so let us start the Ashokan legacy. Ashokan legacy. Ashokan legacy. There are only four important things that you need to understand here. First, a spread of tolerance and respect, which he started off, particularly after the Kalinga War. And you need to give some examples to prove this. Number one, he himself adopted and practiced, preached tolerance. He donated Barbara caves to the Ajivikas. He started giving gifts to non-Brahmins. So these were the few things which shows the spirit of respect and tolerance. Apart from this, political unification. Political unification of the Mauryan Empire. This is no doubt the entire country. The whole country was actually under one rule, one dharma, one language, one script. One dharma, one language, one script, one rule, and things like that. Next, policy of peace and non-aggression. You see, all these things are happening after Kalinga War. All these things are happening after Kalinga War. Three things: the policy of peace, the policy of non-conquest, and the policy of non-aggression. And fourth, last point, a promotion of cultural contacts. Promotion of cultural contacts. Say, for example, India and outer world. He connected to the cultural contacts. He is considered the first global cultural ambassador of India. So these are the way you need to understand, you need to memorize all these stuff. It is easy. You just have to focus on the key points. Now let's come to the last part of the lecture, which is the decline of Mauryan Empire. Decline of Mauryan Empire. Number one, began to disintegrate soon after the death of Ashoka. At 232 BCE. Second, the chain of weak successors. The chain of weak successors. 3, Brahmanical reaction against the Mauryan Empire and its religious and cultural policies. This is the third point. Let us come to the fourth one. There was a financial crisis going on in the Mauryan Empire, financial crisis. Apart from that, there was a sheer neglect. Fifth point, there was a sheer neglect on the administrative point of view towards the northwestern frontier province. Last, all the provinces which were ruled by the viceroys, some of the provinces out of them started oppressing the rules from the center. So excess of centralization at administration was bothering them. So these were the important issues that you need to understand when it comes to the decline of the Mauryan Empire. In the next video, we'll continue the flow chart. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, then please do. Thank you so much.